In this video, we will focus on how you can add up the data that we insert from an updated form back to our database. So we have this here, but of course what we need to do now is we have to consider how do we search it in, and of course you have to consider like what we call sanitizing and all these kind of security matters. I will not go deep in security matters. We will just use a method that helps you to secure your input more better, which we call a prepared statement with PDO. So this is a way to secure things, but of course if you echo it out, it's still becoming a risk. However, you're not risking injection because this is the method to protect you from injection. So I will go later on more deeper in that, but not very deep. However, our focus right now is we want to just save this. So we have this and we save these changes. So maybe you say, well, are we going to insert data in a database or are we going to update data in a database? In our case, right now it looks like we're going to update, but what I want to do first is let's just insert. Insert is a very straightforward process and it is easier to do. So first, let's focus on that. So what we will do is the following. We will go back to our receiving file, and in the receiving file, we need to connect to a database. So if we go back here to this, you can see we have this here. However, if you are very familiar with PHP, then in PHP we have what we call like a DB config. So it's another word for a database config, and it's basically a file where it consists all of these security passwords or all these passwords related items. So we're going to just make one quickly, and what we can do is we'll just say here we just include, and what we include here, well, we'll just include our dbconfig.php. And let's see if this works. So probably we need to change the URL as well here, but let's double check because I already have an existing one and you can even use a sample version. So let's save this first and then I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we're going to save this in the receiving file because we're going to connect to the database, and the receiving file requires this include dbconfig to ensure that we are connected. Alright, once we did that, let's refresh. Click on update. Alright, and open up our item here. You can see no errors if everything is all working. Alright, looks like a positive message. And let me explain exactly what is a DB config. So the DB config, I have here a sample DB config. You can see here basically it just contains all the passwords. So exactly these items here are being reflected in the DB config with all the password files in here. So meaning that you don't have the same password spread over multiple pages or multiple files on the website, just in one single file. And in case you need to change your file, then of course you can just say here, well, if for example the username or password is now instead of password 2, you put in number 2, save, and everything maintains connected. So this is basically what a DB does. Nothing fancy, it's just straightforward. Alright, let's go back to our file. And in our file here, we have right now the receiving file. Now everything works, the connection is done, or at least we have the include DB. Let's start working on the connection. So to make the connection, and we're doing here a prepared statement. This is, we will insert values. What we can do is we can just copy this entire line here. So this is all connected. And if you want this information, just go to W3 Schools PDO prepared statement. As you can see here, MySQL prepared. I'm just going to copy this. And then what I will do is between here, I'll paste the entire line here. Alright. So now, as you can see, it shows everything, and probably this here, this is showing multiple rows. Well, not necessary. We have 3 values that we're going to work with. We have the first name, last name, title. Alright. So you can see here, it says here we have to connect. Make sure you double check. So in your db, you have these names here of these variables. Make sure that these variables are matching. So I always put db in front of it to ensure that we have unique values, because like password and username are very common terms used. Alright, so we have this. We see here PDO error mode. Alright, this works. Then what we have to do now is, of course, making this prepared statement. So prepared statement are required, and prepared statement protects you from PHP injection. So we have here first name, last name, and then here we can say title. What we want to do with the title, and if you are questioning where I get this information or how can you put this here, well, let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. In our database, we have first name, last name, title. These are just really the matching. So what we have to do here, we insert in this column the first name, yes, and then that's this value. And of course here the last name, we say here title, yes. And then insert into, well, what is the table name? The table name is user info, so we're going to insert it into user info. Alright, once we did that, we can say here first name, last name, and title. That's correct, but then we want to bind the statement to make it secure. So this is the first name equals first name here. Yes, that's correct. The last name equals last name here. Yes. And then finally the title here equals title variable. So now once you have this, then of course you can say here, this you can copy. You can put it down here. So basically we're going to insert this row. Everything's correct here. This is all secured now, and then statement execute. So once we do that, we get here this message, which is the one, of course, with our positive confirmation here. So we can copy this information here, and I'm going to remove this by making this a PHP tag, and here a opening PHP tag. So everything between here will be shown in this div ID, and that's it. Alright, so we got this. Let's copy this. I'm going to save that now. Let's save it all in here. Let's double check now if this all works. We're going to insert the value. We say here test, test, and then of course here we just say Mr. for now. Save change. Alright, so you see here right now there's some issues here, and we're going to check them regarding to that. Most likely it's probably the URL connection. I think probably we have to put in the root domain in there before we connect that. But let's do it in the next video. We're going to focus on this.